Welcome to Side Notes. We're out and about here at the Linsmore Tavern again. And once again, the owner, Ryan, has shown that there is tremendous talent in regards to musicians. Sitting here talking with a local musician, Tim Bovaconti.
You got it.
Thank you so much for your
Says
time,
I.
Tim.
No problem. My pleasure.
You've been Burton Cummings, guitar player. You've toured Europe with Ron Sexsmith.
Sexsmith, yeah, that's right.
And you've also played with Leonard Cohen.
On one occasion, yeah.
What's it like touring with, let's say, Burton Cummings?
Been great touring with Burton, playing all those iconic songs that everyone knows and loves. It's always a packed house, and he's still a great fan of music, which is refreshing, for someone of his age. Sometimes people are just doing it for the money or because they have to. He doesn't really need to. He's well off, and he just loves to play, and so I get to do a lot of the lead guitar in the band with him, and it's a lot of fun. And also touring over in Europe and also in North America with Ron Sexsmith. I've been doing that for 11 years and 7 years with Burton, and I try to. It's a balancing act, playing with both of them, trying to make the schedules work, and it's a bit freaky sometimes with your schedule. You're trying to make sure you're available for everybody, but I love what I do, and in between doing those things, I also work on my own music. I've got 2 CDs out. One called just self-titled, and another one called Bover Tones. My nickname being Bover. People that have known me for a long time, and I have those available through my website, timbovaconti.com. And tonight we're playing here, as you mentioned, at the Linsmore Tavern. I live in the neighborhood, so I'm hoping that some of my local friends will come out, and we'll be mostly playing sort of what I call it's like the party band tonight. We'll be playing some rock and roll, a bit of reggae, just a mix of music that we hope will get people up dancing and have some fun with some friends.
So stuff from the 60s, 70s,
Yeah,
and 80s.
all over the map. Yeah.
So you're going to have any, when we talk reggae, are we talking Bob Marley?
Maybe a bit of Bob, but also Dennis Brown, Gregory Isaacs, the real roots reggae stuff. We'll throw in mix it in with some Stones, some Hendrix. We're not really into playing any one kind of style, because I think that we get bored. Like if we were playing covers, we like to just play songs that make us excited, and then we sort of make them our own and jam a bit on them, and like I say, hopefully get people up dancing.
Jerry Lee Lewis, the piano player, rock and roll back in the 50s and 60s. The guy was huge.
Yeah.
Your name's tied right in with
Well,
him, too.
not really right in, but it's a small story, but it's on my bio. But what it is, it's a curious thing that happened was he did a show at Massey Hall years ago. It was a tribute for I believe it was Ronnie Hawkins' 60th birthday bash, and Jerry Lee Lewis was there. My friend mixed the live sound, and he called me up one morning. He said, "Tim, you got to come to the studio, man. The backing vocals are really out of tune." So that's what I never even met the man. It's funny. I was in the studio and I had the headphones on, and it's like, can you just turn Jerry's vocal down a little bit, because I'm trying to nail the notes. It's just kind of funny. It was really enjoyable though. So I did the shake baby shake on a whole lot of shaking going on. Just the one song, so it's not a big deal. It's just a very small little story, but it was quite fun, and then to hear it on the CD, I got a credit in the liner notes.
That's cool. You first started your first gig ever, 14 years old. You have to have a story from that night. The first time you're sitting in front of the audience, you're performing. What was it like for you?
Well, it was luckily it was in front of friends and family on Toronto Island where I grew up, and it was like a fundraiser for the canoe club, Toronto Island Canoe Club, and we knew 4 songs, and I think 2 of them were Beatles songs, and I just remember being pretty terrified, but people like got excited, and sort of gave us support, which made us want to continue. That's what you need when you're that age. It's important that you get some enthusiasm, even if you're lousy. Maybe we were lousy, but even if you're not so good yet, but you have people sense some potential, and that's what I try to do with younger musicians as well. Is just say, you sound great. Just try to give them some encouragement. And I also do some production, and I worked with a bunch of artists, and one of them's doing really well, named Jerry Legier, and he's got a band called, it's Jerry Legier and the Situation, and he's got a bunch of albums out, and I worked on a lot of them, not his last one, but so I met him when he was 17, and so you sort of recognize talent, and you just try to try to help out when you can, as well as doing your own thing. You see.
Another major name in the music industry, Leonard Cohen.
I played with him once. It wasn't a gig. It was a book launch in 2006 at Indigo Books at Bay and Bloor, and they closed off the street. And Leonard hadn't sang in years at that point. He was in retirement, but he got ripped off by his business manager, and which is well documented now. And he was there just to read one of his poems from his current book, and people started after he read, because I was there to play a bunch of songs with Ron Sexsmith, who I play with, as we mentioned, and some of the Bare Naked Ladies were there, and we just sort of did a little homage to Leonard's music, playing a few of his songs in front of this huge crowd. And then the crowd wouldn't let Leonard go. They were like, "Sing something!" Like they were chanting. And Leonard knew that we knew some of his songs, obviously, because we played a few, and we had met him in the basement of Indigo as well, and we jammed with him. Like he came over to us and we played a bunch of his tunes. So he said, "Do you guys want to do something?" And we said, "Sure." And so we went out and we did like "So Long Marianne" and we did about 2 or 3 songs. Some of them are on YouTube. The sound's lousy because the people are the crowd singing as loud as the audio from the stage, kind of thing. But it was a great moment. It was so beautiful to be on stage with him that night.
Do you have any other memories of other artists that you actually got to perform or maybe tour with?
Well, the main ones, like I had my own bands over the years, but I played in the early '90s with a band called Lost Dakotas, and that was just touring Canada. That was great, sort of grassroots touring, and then with Burton Cummings, as we mentioned, and Ron Sexsmith, that's been a lot of extensive touring all over the world. I did this wasn't a tour, but another one-off gig that I did was this songwriter Rodriguez. There's a movie about him called Searching for Sugar Man, and it won an Oscar last year for the best documentary. And he played in Toronto. He was doing a solo show at the Mod Club, and long story, but I got hooked up with him the day of the show over lunch, and I told him, I love your records, and I knew the songs, and he said, "Well, why don't you bring one of your axes to soundcheck?" And I did, and we jammed at soundcheck, and he said, "Well, why don't you just play the whole show then?" So I played the whole show. It was a sold-out gig, which I couldn't get a ticket for. I was trying to get in, and I ended up playing the whole show with the guy. So that was pretty exciting. There's just opportunities that come along every now and then that are exciting, like that. It was really fun.
Any up-and-coming artists that really stick out in your mind? I know you mentioned one earlier that you're producing his
Jerry
numerous of his
Legier.
records.
Jerry Legier. There's I'm listening to a lot of British psychedelic music right now, like current stuff. There's a band called Temples. They're playing at the Mod Club. I'm going to see them next month. And also another band they're from England. Another band from England called Sid Arthur that I love. If you like 60s kind of psychedelic stuff, these are really great bands to check out. That's kind of what I'm into.
And all the touring that you've done, and you must have at least 2 or 3 stories to share, something that stands out in your mind when you're, something's gone wrong with equipment, or maybe you didn't get the guitar in time, or something like that.
Oh, there's always little things. But the first thing I can think of is my old friend Kim Stockwood. She's a singer from St. John's, Newfoundland. I've worked with her for years, and I just remember we were doing this big show in Newfoundland, which is where she's from, and like the first note of a big outdoor crowd, and the first note of my lead guitar solo, I went, and all I smelled was like burning rubber. The amp was on fire, So that was pretty cool. What do? You just got to stop and they start again, Hopefully there's another amp there you can use. Things like that. You just learn to, Another time I remember playing somewhere with Burton Cummings, and I had to, like, it was American Woman, and I had to start the song like, and as soon as I went to play that, the amp was backline provided by the venue. I don't even remember what city we were in. The amp just died, so I'm kicking it, trying to play the riff, and I'm giving it the boot, and we got through it though somehow.
Yeah.
Things like that. You just have to, the longer you're around, you don't panic over these kind of things. You just kind of go with it, because what else are you gonna do, right?
What's your all-time band of all times? If you could actually go back in a different era, let's say 60s, 70s, 80s, or even 90s, you can go back to that era, which era would you go?
Oh, well, the Beatles are always my favorite. I'm waiting for the mono box set of vinyl to arrive at my door. next week. I'm a huge Beatle nut, and so yeah, it's always back to the Beatles for me. Like I love so many bands, The Who, Jimi Hendrix, a lot of '60s stuff I love, But I listen, like I say, I listen to some current stuff as well. But I tend to really go back to that around the time I was born, mid '60s. I wasn't there to live it at the time, but I love that music, the sound of that music,
Your website, real quick, Tim.
www.timbovaconti.com, and that's spelled TIMBOVACONTI.com. I always have to do that because people always misspell my name for years.
Looking back over all the touring you've done, the different musicians you got to play with, what is the one piece of advice that you could give to an up-and-coming artist that you want to bestow upon them?
Well, I would say, and it's harder these days because the money isn't there. The record companies, it's a different business now. But I would just say, don't give up, because if you've got the drive and the gift, and I'm kind of borrowing or paraphrasing this from Roy Orbison, but I remember when I was like in my 20s, right before he died, Roy Orbison said, don't quit this business because you never know what's right around the corner. And I would say that's pretty good advice, because it's all about longevity, I think. Eventually some opportunity will come along that sometimes that you never expected.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.